Welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm so excited for you to hear this wonderful episode with Carrie Lingenfelter, host of the Heart to Heart Parents podcast. We talk about conscious parenting and the challenges and opportunities which come from raising highly sensitive children. I loved what Carrie shared about her elementary school-aged kids realizing that they were taking on the emotions of other kids and feeling sadness and anger that wasn't theirs. I feel like many adults are not so highly attuned to the origin of their moods. So that's fascinating that these children are recognizing things like that. And we also talk about starseeds and crystal children, what they are and their traits, and so many other fascinating topics around conscious parenting. Carrie Lingenfelter is a former speech therapist turned conscious parenting advocate, podcast host, and change maker. As the host of the Heart to Heart Parents podcast, she empowers parents with mindful and spiritual tools to raise emotionally intelligent, compassionate children. A mother of two, Carrie draws from her personal journey of overcoming anxiety, perfectionism, and parenting burnout to inspire parents to step into their power. Her mission is to support changemakers raising changemakers by fostering self-awareness, emotional growth, and spiritual connection within families. So speaking of Starseeds, I hope you'll join me in my free upcoming Galactic Summit happening August 2nd, 2025. This event features outstanding speakers in the Galactic Awakening community. They'll offer their perspective on the role of galactic connection within spiritual awakening. We'll have Debbie Solaris, Viviane Chauvet, Tony Ghazi, Neil Gower, Isha Patel, and Daniel Scranton, as well as other wonderful and amazing guests. Get more info at karagoodwin.com. And now enjoy this episode. Well, welcome, Carrie. I'm really excited to flip things around. I was on your podcast recently, and now I get to have you on Soul Elevation. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much, Kara, for having me on. I'm really excited to connect with you again in this heart space.
Yes. Well, I want to talk about conscious parenting, which is such an important topic and not one that I have really explored on this podcast. Talk about what conscious parenting is and how you got active in this space.
Yes. So, in our house, conscious parenting has looked like I actually use the term spiritual parenting a lot too. In our house, we really love to connect with ourselves as parents, hearing our hearts and our heart space in what we need in our parenting journey, what our kids are needing in their journey, our partners are needing, our dog is needing, all of the above. So really, it's bringing it back to connection within us and connection with others to see what is the best path to take. So I used to be a speech therapist and early elementary educator, and I worked with kids that were birthed to age 3 when I was in speech therapy. So before I had my kids, I was really excited about having kids, and I thought I knew everything about parenting. My husband is an engineer side, so he's more science-based, and I would say, I've got this. Don't worry about a thing. I'm the parenting expert here. I got it. Kids are my jam. And then as soon as I became a parent, I really realized I knew nothing. Everything I had learned, all of the textbooks and the evidence-based practice and all these tools that I thought I had really were not what I needed in the mom setting. It was not what my almost 10-year-old son, what he needed at the time. I was trying to live by the book, live by the box of perfection, and trying to do everything that I thought I needed to do to be a parent. Luckily, I had people around me, my mom, friends, my grandmother, who were connected spiritually and consciously, and they would help me to hear my own heart. They would help me to follow my son instead of trying to do sleep schedules and feeding schedules and all of these things that you think you need, which at the time for the babyhood turns into what you think you need in elementary school, having them in sports early on, having all these things, right, that you think you have to do to be the perfect parent. So really, I started to learn that early on. Tuning in and hearing what my kids needed, what I needed, really helped me to figure out exactly how to help my kids and how to best connect with them and connect with myself. So it really was more recently that I started Heart to Heart Parents because I wanted to reach out to other parents going through this and feeling alone in raising some of these amazing but challenging kids.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Can you give some examples about things that you needed to be in this, you kind of needed to come out of what does the book say versus what really is needed here? What were some examples of things like that that you learned
Mm-hmm.
through parenting?
Sure. So let's see. Examples would be it's really interesting because I would notice my kids have they have labels and such with the neurodiverse side. So even more so in our house, it's following the child and what the child has in their strengths, what they have in their challenges. And so I quickly learned as a parent that I was not in control as much as I thought I was and as much as I wanted to be. I could not control us getting to school on time. I could not control things going smoothly every day in the house as I would want my soul like to be in a calm setting. I could not control that. And I didn't realize how sensitive I was, how much I really wanted to control things, or how perfectionist qualities I had in me or people pleasing. These were all things that my children taught me along this journey. So an example would be my son when he was in first grade. He runs hot and he always wanted to wear shorts. And where I live in Colorado, it would be 35 degrees. And so it would be this struggle in the morning, put on your pants. I want shorts, put on your pants. And it was this challenge. And I started to really look into the root of why I was wanting him to wear the pants. And it was because when we would wear the shorts and we would get to school, there were other parents that would say things out loud like, oh, wow, brave wearing shorts today when it's 35 degrees, or the looks I would get and all of those pieces, right, that I would have a challenge with receiving as his mom. So then we started to dive into that. Okay, let's let him wear his shorts. He'll bring his pants in his backpack. Let's look at the root cause of this. And so we did the basic, right, the physical piece. And then I looked at the spiritual piece, the foundation of what is going on within me. What do I need to look at? The people pleasing, being okay with being who we are and letting our flags fly of who we are as Lingenfelters. So that was a piece, this healing piece that I had to go through. And as I started to look at those pieces of myself, it was like, whoa, there's a lot of inner child work. There's a lot of every time a challenge comes up in our family, our 2025, my year word is light me up. And it's I'm okay with the challenges coming. Please don't send me more than I need, but I'm okay with the challenges coming. And when that challenge arises, I'm tuning into them, my kiddo, tuning into my partner, if that's the situation, myself. And I'm looking at these moments as opportunities to heal, grow, and learn from. What is it that we need to change right now? Because that's what this challenge is showing us. Something needs to happen. Some shift needs to happen energetically in our house. Does that shift look at something internally for me? Oftentimes it is, because our children are the mirrors of our energy. An example would be recently, we've all been sick in our house recently, and my energy levels were low, and I was having a hard afternoon with my kiddo trying to get her to go to bed, trying to get her to brush her teeth, and she just wasn't in the mood. Her energy was low as well. She had been sick and at school, or coming over a cold and at school, and I felt this, you feel the energy bubbling up and you like, why is this resistance? Just brush your teeth. Mom wants to go to bed. She's not feeling good. She needs to heal. So do you. You need to go to bed. And you snowball as a parent. You can snowball in your mind of, you're resisting me. Are you going to grow up and not follow rules? Are you going to grow up? And so then you fight harder, right? Which they're the mirror of our energy. So they're going to be pushing back. Like, oh, nope, I'm getting angry too, Mom. And so it was interesting. I asked my husband to switch out at that point so I could go wash dishes and kind of regulate myself. And he came in with a calm energy, and she reflected that energy. He sat down, he played with her for a minute, and then he was able to go brush her teeth. And we know that when something in us is working up in that energy and you need a moment to step out, that's so helpful to come in with a pure and loving vibration that they're going to reflect back towards you.
Yeah, I love that. It's so interesting too how when there are two people who can kind of balance each other out when things get
Yeah.
tricky in raising children, it's almost like the other parent can come in and it doesn't really even matter what they say or what they do. It's just different. And it's like it just infuses things and it shifts things. Because I know I've had that where like I've been on both sides of it, but let's say my
Yeah.
husband, is things are getting all worked up and he's not getting anywhere with our
Mm-hmm.
one of our children. And this is more when they were younger because they're teens now, so
Mm-hmm.
it just
Yep.
looks different. But
Yep.
and then he, okay, you try, and I come in and I don't do anything special, but it's
Yes.
just different, and it's
Yep.
like, and I'm not charged because I haven't been in all of this and I'm just staying neutral. And I've had it the other way too, where
Mm-hmm.
I don't have
Yes.
any more ideas and I'm frustrated and it's like, I'm done. I'm done. And then he comes in and it's like, well, he's not even doing anything. And now she's doing it.
I know. Yeah. There's a little bit of the ego that pops up like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I've been doing that same exact thing, but it works for him now in 5 minutes. But yeah,
Yeah.
then you just kind of go, oh, yep. Hi, ego. There you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that she's going to bed. Let's focus on the love and the happy pieces.
Right, right. Now, here's a tricky thing, at least in maybe you've got a great thought about this, but the balance of learning from our kids and leading our kids, because
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways I feel like kids these days are a lot of the souls who are coming in and have been coming in have a different level of consciousness than we older people
Mm-hmm.
do, and they have a lot to teach us. And I think they're going to be so beneficial for this planet,
Yeah.
when they're in charge, let's say.
Right.
But for now, they're still children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we all have experience with kids who are running the show in the household
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. Like they're not ready for it. They need boundaries. So, you know, too much of letting the kids quote unquote lead creates a
Yeah. Yeah.
toxic environment for kids. So, what do you think about that balance and how to strike it?
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like I live in a pretty crunchy area of Colorado, and I see so much of the positive parenting pieces without boundaries. And I agree with you. There have to be boundaries because we are the adult. We're not going to let them run into the street, right? We have to have boundaries and we have to teach them the ways of the world. So it's definitely a piece of it. And I think the connection piece is such a huge piece. And oftentimes it's so funny when I'm talking on all these podcasts, I hear so many people like, yes, put the phones away. And we're not active on our phones. And I have little ones, so they don't have phones in this house at all. So we're not on devices or anything except for work, or once in a while we get some TV time, a very short amount. But I hear so many people say, put your devices away, have them outside of the room when you're playing a game with your kid, when you're connecting with your kid. And in our house, we have a 5-minute connection every night. We have special playtime right before we go to bed. So my husband and I, we swap times with the kids. So we're each with them one-on-one and we're following their lead. We're connecting with them. We try to get that every day. So even in a busy day, a busy school day with activities, we're still going to have some connection with them, because having that connection and that loving piece with our child is going to allow us to establish those boundaries in a loving way. I love to use this term or this phrase that I say with my son because he's 10 and he's definitely getting up there to the preteen age, right? That adolescent age of questioning, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to go to bed at 8:30? My friends go to bed at 9. Why can't I play Minecraft every day after school? It's what my friends get. So I love to say my job right now is to help you become the best version of yourself. And along with that job, I'm going to support you, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to help you when you're in need. Along with that comes the challenges. I have to also challenge your body too, because you're growing into this amazing human, and my job is to give you opportunities to grow in yourself too. So I love to put that out there, and I'm starting to use it with my 7-year-old as well, which is new in itself. But having this connection and being upfront and having these conversations, and I'm sure it might look different in your house too, Kara, as you have big kids.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so many things just change as they age, and the challenges change. Um, and I know that, mindfulness is a big component for you too. What do you think mindfulness looks like for kids?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like people are really opening the mindful door up to kids, and I love that so much. My kids, they love to do that. I can't remember the name of the psychologist. There's a research psychologist from Columbia, and she has a lot of research. She has a book called The Spirited Child, and it's really interesting. It talks about children being born connected spiritually and seeking spiritual answers in their childhood. And they want to know, they're very connected to nature. Nature is a healing component for them. And they come with this excitement for life. This is describing my kids to a T. They're born with an excitement for life. They're born wanting to know, why does that train go that direction and not the other direction? They're wanting to know, why is the sun, why do we only see it for 12 hours of the day or such? And so fostering those spiritual pieces, fostering those intense questions when they're younger. Whereas when I was little, it would be like, oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, I'm not sure. I can't look that up. We do have access on our phones or our internet, which is pretty cool. We can look up these big answers for them. But along with these ideas is they are so in tune and so connected that these brains of these kids, I always tell my kids, and I'll describe neurology and things that we're finding for neurodiverse children too, or highly sensitive kids, or gifted and talented kids. They're so connected, their brains are so fast, and they work so in such a powerful way that it can be so easy to end up feeling more anxious, to end up having a very overactive brain that maybe brings in the fears more often than other kids might have. So these mindful pieces have been so powerful for my kids. I used to be a speech therapist, so we've done many different types of therapies in our house, but I will tell you, spirituality, mindfulness, conscious parenting, all of these things have done more for my kids, empowered my kids more than anything else. So in our house, we don't use labels, for instance. We talk about our brains work differently. Our brains may be overactive than other people. We talk about that and how that looks. So I love to teach them. We talk about thinking positively, right? I know there's such thing as like too much positivity. We have to be alert and aware. Yes, we talk about that too, but we mainly focus on the magnetic idea of being the change you want to see. Or if I'm having a feeling in my heart and I'm sending out that feeling to the universe, it could attract that feeling back to me. So if somebody looks at me funny and I'm like, oh, I don't like that person. They don't like me. Look at the way they looked at me. I would use this example. Then they're going to feel my energy, the way I'm looking at them. Oh, I don't like them. They're going to feel that and they're going to reflect that back toward me. Is that the feeling I want to have toward me? No, I want to change it. Maybe they're having a tough day. I'm going to smile at them and I'm going to think of the positive and move on. Or another example of changing the mindset from what we don't want to see to what we do want to see is every single time we go to the zoo on a field trip, it's always raining or snowing or sleeting here in Colorado. I don't know why. Thank you, universe. But it's an opportunity for me to tell my kids, okay, there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. So we're going to put on all the clothing and then we're going to pack the sunscreen because we're going to picture the sun coming out. And luckily I live in Colorado. Sometimes that happens, but we're going to focus on what we want to see. We're not going to focus on the nitty gritty of, oh, I don't want to be walking. And mom in her head may be going toward, I really don't want to have kids complaining today. Nope, I'm not going to allow it in me too, because they can feel that energy too. I can talk about energy if you would like, Kara. That's a big one I love to talk to my kids about too.
Yeah. How do you incorporate that into with your kids?
Yeah. So, it's really interesting raising these amazing kids coming in. So many of them, and I'm hearing it more and more. There's a lot of terms: highly sensitive child, empaths, all of these pieces. And I really found that everybody in our family is highly sensitive. And it took us a while. My husband and I were like, oh, yeah, we're both highly sensitive. So why would we be surprised that our children are as well? And we started to notice my kiddos would come home and say, so and so was having a meltdown, and I sat next to him, and Mom, I felt his energy, and I felt I was absorbing some of that sadness he was having, and he felt better. And so then I started to realize we need to have a conversation on energy. So we would discuss the energy. I am energy, you are energy, plants are energy, the sun is energy, the earth has an energy vibration. I'm sure you could go on about this, Kara,
Yeah.
in your podcast.
You know I can.
know, I loved it. So we were talk about we're all energy. And when some of us are born with these amazing gifts, labeled gifts sometimes, I don't tell them that, but labeled gifts, we're born with these heightened sensitivities. We can hear better, we can see better. Sometimes that can be really intense and seen as a challenge. In our house, we choose to empower ourselves and see it as a superpower. We can read the energy of a room. So I talk about to the kids, if we're around another child who's having maybe a sad moment and they're feeling the sadness and they're telling us about it, and without realizing it, I could be like a magnet pulling that energy onto me. I could feel it in my stomach. I could feel it in my head. I could just suddenly, I was happy at recess and now I'm really sad or I'm really angry. I could be absorbing this without realizing it. So I described the energy and what it could look like for our kids at school. And I started to teach them every morning before we go to school. I taught them this in a seated, calm time, and then now they know it so well that we just recite it when we're driving to school or when we're walking out the car to get in the car or walking out the door to get in the car. We picture a white light, pure white light, spiraling from coming out the head, and then it spirals around our face, it spirals around our shoulders, our tummies, the upper leg, the lower leg, our feet. It goes straight into the earth and connects me from the sky to the earth. And then we do the same thing with golden light. And then we picture roots growing from our feet straight down into the earth, all the way down into the core of the earth. And that's grounding us. And then we say out loud, only positive energy, no negative energy allowed. And I recently added the roots. I had a friend that said, you need them in their bodies. Sometimes they check out. We need them to stay grounded. So that was when we added for each morning, we say that. And I taught my daughter. She was 6 at the time, and she was having a friend that was having a lot of changes in her house, and it was a hard time for her. So we would, I said, if you feel like you're taking that on, try doing this. If you feel like you're picking up their energy. And she said, Mom, I felt it at recess. Someone was telling me a story, and I was feeling really sad, so I did the white and gold light, and I felt better. So
That's awesome.
It was really cool to hear a little one.
I love that. That's so great. I love it. Now, I'm curious, as your kids have gotten older, particularly because you're saying, we could label them, we choose not to label them, but there are some people who work in the spiritual world who are really focused on children, and particularly children who get labeled, and they, ADHD, ADD, all of that. But with those types of labels, a lot of times these are very connected souls who are coming in, very big energies, advanced energies from a spiritual perspective. So I'm curious, as the parent of children who might be labeled in that way, have there been times where they've surprised you with their wisdom or what they've brought to you that seems kind of unexpected in terms of how they would understand the workings of reality, for example, or relationships or anything you've given some hints of
Yeah.
of things, but does anything come to mind?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My kids, they were born alert. They were born conscious. When my son was laid on my chest, he looked me in the eyes and he had these bright blue eyes. And my husband and I do not have blue eyes. So we were like, what happened here? And my husband said, he's beautiful. And he turned his head and looked in my husband's eyes. And we were like, whoa, our earth is rocked. So it's been from the start that we knew that our kids were very connected. I don't know if you've ever heard, I know Dolores Cannon does some pieces of like the Starseed children, or she does more indigo children, crystal children, rainbow children. And then I've also looked at Starseed children. And it's been really interesting to, I like looking at the YouTube. I look for videos and they describe the differences between them. And I one time found one that had all three of them, I think. And it was describing the differences. And I played it for my kids. I said, what do you think of this? And they were like, we're all star seeds. All of them, and my husband too, said we're star seeds. They all felt star seeds. And then I said, what do you think I am? And they were all like, you are a crystal child. It was really interesting. So the crystal children were more like light workers and energy healers, teachers, people that worked with other people and people that shared information like I do with my podcast. It's really funny. And then my kids always are drawn towards space. They're drawn toward, trying things differently. So it's been interesting to see these things progress, but I will say they definitely absorbed information in life so quickly. And more recently, I just had this feeling I was drawn to start the podcast to try to connect with other people. And it was interesting because a year ago I started it, and I was more than a year ago, 15 months ago, and I was drawn toward the conscious piece and the mindful piece. But I kept hearing, you need this spiritual piece. You need this. And these kids, and I kept hearing this message, these kids are coming in with these amazing gifts. It can be hard. With these gifts also come the challenges of being a human, right? Being in this human form can feel painful at times. It can be loud. Mom can make you eat those green things that don't taste good. And it can be, the signals in their brain are very loud. So they want to sometimes check out of the human body. And I kept having this feeling when they would my kids would have a meltdown. It was like, ooh, their spirit doesn't want to be in the human form. It's interesting because I felt that as a kid. Like, I didn't want to be in my human spot listening to math when I was in third grade. I wanted to just, I don't know what I wanted to do, be in nature. So yes, having to consciously be in our bodies. But I kept hearing these kids are being born with these amazing gifts, and going through the human existence can be very, very hard. My kids want to push through. They want to be adults right now. The human form, it takes a long time to become an adult. It takes a long time for your baby sister to get to the point where she can walk. My son was like, I want her to walk right now. So these pieces, the human form can be intense. And I have this mission to help parents understand that we can still support them, we can still guide them, we don't have to control them. And the more we want to control them, the more we want to put them inside of society's box of expectations, the more that they're going to develop these layers of protection on them. And then when they're adults, they can't hear their intuition. They're no longer connected. We need to raise them staying connected to their intuition and their hearts and their spirits, their mind, body, spirit connection into adulthood, because they're already there right now. And it's so easy for them to connect right now.
I love that. It's so fascinating. I wish you could have been with me like all day to see how this conversation ties into every other conversation I've had this day. It started with a coffee with a friend, and we always go deep and never know where the conversation's going to go. And we were talking about how it's hard to be a human, and the kind of the challenges of knowing that you're not from here, and but like the opportunity that's here, and the like, okay, I've got an opportunity here as a soul to have this physical experience, but also what is the opportunity for the collective, and how does that play in with the energy that we're holding? And then I was on another podcast, and when we finished, she was like, "So are you a starseed and where are you from?" And
Oh,
it was the podcast is a Reiki podcast, and we did kind of touch
love it.
on star seeds and things like that. But that was just as soon as we finished recording, it was kind of not out of the blue. It was relevant, but it was also unexpected. Then I had another podcast guest right before you, who is a galactic Akashic reader, but he
Oh, I
went
love that.
right into
Mm-hmm.
my Akashic or my star lineage, and just,
Ooh.
again, not unexpected and totally on point, but I didn't expect you to go there. And so
Hmm.
I love that your family's like, well, we're star seeds and you're a crystal child and all of this. That's
It was
amazing.
so cool.
So there's a guest I've had a long time ago from Australia called Mary Rodwell.
Okay.
And she has written books on, she calls them the alphabet children. And she specifically, I think the book I'm thinking of is called The New Human. And she talks about these children who are being diagnosed with these letter names. They're like the
Hmm.
the ADHD, the ADD,
The
whatever it
letter
is, but
names.
like the
Cute.
alphabet.
Acronyms. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and how they are star seeds, and it's just this
Yeah.
misunderstanding within society of like they
Yeah.
don't operate the way that we expect people to operate, but it's really more from like the big picture standpoint of
Hmm.
like, oh, they're here to help us. They're here, like even
Yeah.
if they don't specifically work within, it doesn't really matter what they do as a profession
Hmm.
when they're older,
Hmm.
but just the way that they see the world, the
Yeah.
way that the energy that they're holding, it's very specific, and it is to help us through this evolution. So you are clearly already tuned into this, but I think you might
Hmm.
enjoy Mary Rodwell's work.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Um, it's really amazing. So talk about, oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, have you listened to it's a really popular podcast, Telepathy Tapes?
Yes.
I love that one. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that's really opening the door to people being more aware and
Mhm.
seeing pieces as strengths instead of just the challenges.
Yes, it's been huge.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny because I want to say like maybe it was January or so. That was
Hmm.
when the first text came about, have
Yeah.
you heard the telepathy tapes? And from then, I must have gotten
Yes.
every week I would get like about between 3 and 5 texts from people going, or
Wow.
emails or whatever. Have you heard of the telepathy tapes? And I'm like, yes, it's great. I do. I love it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I
But
love it.
people have been very, very moved by it, and it's amazing.
Yep. Yep. I love that it's bridging that for us, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it just changes what you think,
Hmm.
because from a mainstream society perspective, it's like a problem.
Hmm.
They're a problem for us to solve. How do we solve them so they can become what we want them to be, what
Yes.
we're used to?
Yes.
And it
In the
takes, I mean,
box.
yeah, and it's like, but that's not what they're here for. But I
Hmm.
mean, it does make sense for like this is how it's always been. This is
Hmm.
how this is what it is like to have the human experience, and
Yep.
we're having trouble ushering these kids into that box. you know. So how do
They
we fix that? You
no,
know.
they're building outside of the box.
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
just going to be amazing to see
Hmm.
how society changes because of that, because
Yep.
I mean, just the fact that there are so many kids who could not care less what mainstream society thinks of them you know
Yeah, it's already and like your
yeah,
children's age, I feel like there's so many of them already.
right. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, why would I do what they're doing? Like, I could not care less about that. Whereas in my like I'm a Gen Xer, and
Hmm.
there was less of that. You might have like the
Hmm.
rebels, you have
Hmm.
more of a
Yep.
rebellious mentality that is more
Yep.
deliberately rebellious. And
Yep.
but then like it feels like now there's just this whole other echelon where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not pushing to push. I'm not
Hmm.
like trying to challenge you because I want to challenge you.
Hmm.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So why would I adopt that behavior,
Yes.
or why would I care about that? And
Yep. Yep. It's
um
beautiful. It's really cool. I
yeah.
feel like now you can go into the world I feel like more often now you can go into the world and be more spiritual. You
Mhm.
don't have to test the water as much anymore.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely taking on a different perspective within the
Mm-hmm.
collective. And because I think your work, your life is similar to mine, and where like we just have more exposure to that. Like in my
That's
world,
true.
people expect me to be talking about that kind of stuff, and I expect people to, so my barriers are lower. But then
Mm-hmm.
I find myself surprised sometimes where I'm like, oh, this is how, like, oh, you still trust what the news is telling you. Oh, you still believe
You're
that. Like you
still.
still believe that that matters. Oh, yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. But it's like I have to quickly reshift like, oh, well then what do I say in this in this
Yeah.
situation, because they're not ready. Like they have no
Mm-hmm.
foundation for what I would normally say.
Yep.
This isn't the right time. It's kind of just
Yep.
understanding and respecting where people are,
Yep.
not needing them to necessarily understand
Mm-hmm.
what I think about that,
Yep.
and just, letting them be where they are. And, um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's funny because my expectations, I'm like, oh yeah, there are people who, I was at dinner the other night with somebody I hadn't seen for a long time, and she started she started like kind of taking the conversation in a political
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
direction. And I did
Oof.
used to really care about politics,
Yep.
and I could not care less now. I don't believe any of it, and
Wow, it's interesting you shifted. Yeah.
right. And it's not like, oh, I used
Yeah.
to be this and now I'm like, oh, I used to be left and now I'm really right, or I used to be right and
Yep.
now I'm really left. It's just like I don't believe in it. I don't
He
believe that.
doesn't. Yep.
And I don't pay attention to it, and I don't give it my
Mm-hmm.
energy. And
Interesting.
and so it was like like I could feel where she wanted to go, and I was just like, there was I
Yep.
had nothing. I mean,
Yep.
I don't have any information to offer.
Yep.
I don't want to go that path, in the
Yep.
conversation. So it just kind of died.
It's interesting because so I've studied Reiki too, and I recently just did level 2, and it's been really interesting. As you go through the attunements, you can see changes in your mind, body, spirit connection. And for me, I feel like before I did Reiki, I would have this this strong feeling and connection to things like politics or whatever. And now that I've done Reiki level 2, I can breathe things out, like in a moment if I'm feeling drawn toward a politics situation. I breathe it out and then I just feel neutral. And it's given me this gift of just neutralizing, like, I don't have to hold that in me. I don't have to hold that in my space. I can breathe it out and just be present. And it's been
Mm,
wonderful.
that is amazing. I love it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that neutrality is a
Yeah.
critical component of spiritual foundation, like
Mm-hmm.
in the ability to hold more energy and to up level. It's like
Yes.
we've got to be able to get neutral about things, and it takes
Mm-hmm.
practice, it takes dedication, and
Yeah.
it
Yep.
takes a lot of compassion, but
Yes.
it's
And
a key component to it.
you
So,
know, as a parent too, you have to have those tools in your bag because I think any spiritual guru, even Eckhart Tolle, is going to have his human moments.
yeah.
Like we all need to, we're always going to have those human moments, no matter if we're a Reiki practitioner, like a master Reiki person, we're still going to have human moments that come up. We're still going to have an explosion at a time when you're trying to rush out of the house. You have to have those pieces because we're human. We're living a human experience, no matter how connected we are. And so having those things to come back to, it's really cute. My kids, they ask me for Reiki every night at bed.
Oh,
Yeah, especially my 10-year-old. He was going through standardized testing recently, which was awful. And every night he would say, Mom, I need my Reiki. I'm like, okay,
oh,
let's do it. So yeah, they're learning these tools and these things. And then also as a parent, as they say, you have to be able to put your oxygen mask on first, which I used to always laugh at with my husband. I was like, put mine on because I'm going to be putting my kids on. I used to always joke, but now I'm like, I have learned, you have to take care of us. We have to have our spiritual tools in our baskets because connecting with ourselves, they're feeling that, they're living that. So
right.
yeah.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying when your child was observing, like, oh, somebody was feeling badly. I went and sat by them, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was taking on what
Yes.
they were. And it's Like there is definitely, when we're empathetic, that we lend our energy subconsciously, but through
Yes.
that strengthening, we have when we get to, as we keep evolving, we
Mm-hmm.
become these generators, and then we're radiating and not where
Mm-hmm.
it's more of an offering than a like,
Mm.
oh, let me take that for you. We don't take it on as easily. And so what you're
Ah,
talking about with like the spiraling and everything and that protection you
yeah.
were putting around, it's strengthening their fields.
Mm-hmm.
But the doing that work on ourselves strengthens our energy and keeps us so that we can offer more. We've got more
Mm.
of us to offer, not necessarily meaning that we need to burn the candle at both ends, but just our
Yep.
presence. We
Yep.
offer more energy to each
Yeah.
situation. And so, yeah, it's really important.
I love that description. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So, Carrie, this is just incredible. Please tell people how they can connect with you. I mean, you're
Sure.
such an amazing
Well,
role
thank you.
model for parents, and you're doing such great work. So, how can
Yeah.
how can
Yeah.
people
So
find you?
so we have our thanks. We have our website, hearttoheartlife.com. And then we have the podcast Heart to Heart Parents. It's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And then I'm also on Instagram with some daily fun and messages and affirmations for Heart to Heart Parents podcast as well. And I really appreciate connecting with you. You have such a wonderful show. I think you're doing amazing work for your listeners and your community.
Well, likewise. Thank you so much. It's been great. We've had a great week together with me
Yeah.
being on your podcast earlier
Yes.
and you being on mine now. So, thank you so, so much. Thanks for everything that you're doing in the world and with your family. And it's been just a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Soul Elevation. Please take a moment to think about someone in your life who might be uplifted or have their curiosity sparked by this content and send it on to them. Let's keep sharing high frequency, empowering content to reinforce the highest potential for humanity. I also invite you to subscribe to this content. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you for the next episode of Soul Elevation.